When calculating a percentage of a quantity, you must be able to do it both with and without a calculator. If we take as an example calculating 15% of 240, a non-calculator method would first of all require us working out an easy percentage without a calculator. In this case, 10% equals 24. If we know 10%, then 5% would be equal to 12. Now we have 10 and 5%, 15% becomes easy to calculate, as we can just add together the 10% and the 5% values to give us a final answer of 36. Obviously, if you're allowed to use a calculator, the calculation is a lot easier. And to work out 15% of 240, we would do 15 divided by 100 multiplied by 240, getting us again the answer of 36. Right, so now we've seen how to work them out both with and without a calculator, we're going to do some examples together on the board. So these first few questions are asking us to work out the following percentages without a calculator. So the first one we're going to do is 12% of 200. Now remember from the last slide, the easiest way to calculate things without a calculator is to work out 10% and use that to help you. Now 10% of 200 is 20. Now, if I know 10%, other percentages become easier to calculate. For example, I could work out 1% of 200 to be 2. Now, if I have another 1%, it's easy for me to work out 12%. So now I can work it out by calculating another 1% and then quite simply adding the 10, the 1 and the 1 to give me 12% overall. So in this case, 12% of 200 is 24. Let's do another one. 20% of 350. Now again, it's all based around the 10%. 10% of 350 is 35. If I work out another 10%, i.e. another 35, the two together would add together to give me 20%. So 20% therefore is going to be equal to 70. So once you can work out 10% of a number easily, all the other percentages become that bit easier to work out. And you can literally build your percentage by working out a variety of different ones. So the last example we'll look at without a calculator is 35% of 400. Think about how we can break 35% down. If I can work out 10%, which is 40, 30% then becomes easier to work out. 30% would quite simply be 3 lots of 10%. In this case, 120. If I've also worked out 10%, then 5% becomes easy to work out. 5% would just be half of 10%. In this case, 20. That gives me 30% and 5% that I've worked out separately. Adding them together will give me that 35% is therefore equal to 140. Okay, so now we're going to look at how we'd work out those same percentages of quantities, but with a calculator. We've got 3 different questions and we're allowed to use a calculator in each of these. The first one is 17% of 460. Now remember, when we're allowed to use a calculator, the sum we do is always the same. 17 divided by 100, because that's the percentage, and multiply by 460. Now in this case, if you use your calculators correctly, 17 divided by 100 multiplied by 460 gives an answer of 78.2. And you can check that on your own calculators. The next one we'll look at is 2.4% of 2,300. So we take our percentage, we divide it by 100 and multiply by the amount. So this time we're going to do 2.4 divided by 100 multiplied by 2,300. And if you do that on your calculators, you should come up with the answer 55.2. So the last question we'll look at is 23% of 5,600. And remember, the sum we do is always the same. 23 divided by 100 multiplied this time by 5,600. And if you put those numbers into your calculator, you should come up with the answer 1,288. So whilst it is much easier to do fractions of a quantity on a calculator, you must make sure you put the sum in correctly, otherwise you'll end up with an incorrect answer.